Good evening, everyone. So we have with us Mr. Robert today, and we are going to decode NEP together. My name is Asna Fareen, and I'm so happy to introduce you to today's guest. He is an eminent person working a lot with Indian system and with Indian system of education and principles. So I would just like to share a small PPT, and then we'll move ahead. Uh, I just want to explain things in a more appropriate manner so that you can you see the PPT, Mr. Robert? Is it there?
Yes, it is.
That's great. So here we are today to talk about something which I'm going to start, and that is Learners Tribe International School. As we'll end the PPT and other things, you will get to know more about the school. My name is Asna Fareen, and I'm founder and director of the school. Apart from that, I'm also head of primary and PYPC of an international school, working in Bangladesh for past 2 years and into international education for past 12 years. We have with us Mr. Robert Thorn, and he generously accepted to be our advisory board member, and he's going to basically deal with professional development because he is into teachers training and he is doing a great job training the teachers. A little bit more about Mr. Robert. So Mr. Robert is an international educator with 30 years of experience. He is the founding director of the hybrid organization Developing Real Learners, the main function of which is to help school build learning communities, enable young people to become the best holistic learner they can be, and coach trainers, leaders, educators, parents, and young people to develop holistic learning, leveraging the strength of both their culture and shared humanities. You can email him, so other details are there. You can touch base with him on LinkedIn, and this is his website. Today, we are here to talk about NEP. NEP is National Education Policy, which was the much awaited change which we were all waiting for many years. And here we are to talk about the intricacies of NEP and how are we aligned when it comes to developing an international school which is completely online. So, Mr. Robert, over to you. You can start discussing about yourself. It's good to know about you from you.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, so I've been an international educator for the last 30 years. And I think in my life before that, I was always moving. So we emigrated from Britain to Canada twice before I was 11 years old and came back again. So I've been in a life where I move a lot. And so I've been in many different places, Turkey, Egypt, Czechoslovakia, when it was Czechoslovakia, Slovakia recently, Japan, and then I visited many countries also. And so a wide range of experience, but a wide range of experience of different systems. And I think the most important thing is seeing the similarities of the predicaments that we are in globally in our education systems. So if anyone's out there thinking that the Indian education system, oh, it's got a problem and they're the only ones, and you're not. I think many, even those countries that say they've got great education systems, they have a problem that we need to solve. So I was going to be the founding head of, the founding head of international school in Chennai most recently, but the pandemic and some other factors put paid to that. And so I'm now sitting in Turkey and waiting for the pandemic to calm down a little bit. Is that okay?
It's great to know about you. Yeah, we all are waiting to, go back to classroom from classroom. Yes, it had some, some kind of advantages, and this is the reason why we are talking together. So it helped us to bring a global community together to bring that change in the educational system. So very rightly said by you that the problem is not only there with the Indian educational system, the problem is prevalent and it is there. Like in most of the countries, still we are following the factory based model. We are still into rote learning. We are still valuing, measuring more than progressing. So, yeah, these are the things which are there, and those are quite dominant everywhere. So, my first question is, what is something that made you interested or inclined towards, digging deeper into NEP 2020? So, I found you very interested in this particular area, and no doubt it is a buzzword. I am also interested in it. So, just tell us more about it.
Right. Well, I've always had an interest in India. When I was at university, many of my friends were from different parts of India, and then I opened while I was still being a principal, I opened up a non-profit organization called Developing Real Learners, and that was really to spread some of the good things that I discovered on my journey through different systems, but especially most recently the International Baccalaureate. It's a very expensive, it's a very good program, but it's very expensive. So how can other people benefit from the same sorts of ideas, and where did they get their ideas from? Okay, so I did a lot of research into that, and then I got involved with, I had many connections in India through LinkedIn, and then I was helping a young scientist who went back to his village and realized there was still no school in his village, and we started to use my organization to help him to develop a school in Karnataka, so that sort of thing. Then last year I heard about the ministry. Some friends were talking about the Ministry of Education creating the national education, the NEP 2020, and I attended an info session on that, and there were some of the experts who had been advising about the NEP there, and one of them showed a document to illustrate one of the aspects of the NEP, and the document she put up was a direct copy of an International Baccalaureate document. And I thought, that's very interesting. Here's me with my experience of International Baccalaureate and generally positive feelings about the ideas.
Sorry to interrupt, Robert. I had the same impression because we are into IB for so many years, and most of the things we have, automatically by hearted. So it is there in our mind when we read it. So we can, in a wink, we can collect that no, this is something which has been copied. And when I read it, it did not come to me as a shock that NEP is something which is new. It seems like I have been doing it for a decade, because now this is my 12th year in IB-PYP. So it's like I have been doing these things which are now introduced in Indian system of education. So yeah, no doubt when you read it, because that funny incident also happened with me, that I could find so many similarities. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the copied pasted text, but yes, when I read it, it was like completely inspired by so many curriculum which are already doing well. So they try to bring in, all the great things. I think all the best practices they want to bring in. So my next question to you, if you are done with the first question.
I'd just like to say that that's really, they've done a wonderful job of putting that document together. And then I read, I think one sentence, there was one sentence in there that really got me, and that was, learning will be holistic, integrated, engaging, and enjoyable. And I thought, okay, that now you've got the key element. The ministry is telling you we've got to do education properly. All right. So that's how I got involved.
Well, I am a product of Indian system of education only. I was in a school where we had the sage on the stage model, and the teacher was the sole dictator of knowledge. We were the passive learners. So I experienced it all as a student. But luckily, as a teacher, I did not do it. So that was, that was something which became the misconception of, my prior knowledge. So eventually, with the IB, I could get rid of what all I experienced as a student. So for me, those are don'ts. But yes, there were some great things which made me who I am today. Like I saw my teachers, they were focusing a lot on relationship, building those connections, being worried about us outside the classroom. So those were the great things. And there were few teachers who were in a system which was not allowing them to use that teacher's ownership, what we call
Yeah,
in IB teachers agency. So my
yeah.
next question is, what are the major opportunities that you see in NEP? What are those areas which are going to benefit us? And do you find them realistic, or those are just on paper things? So
Yeah.
what do you say about that?
I think I think it's going to take a while, and I think they know it's going to take a while. There are a lot of obstacles to get over, but the opportunities are immense. And India is positioned in a really good point at the moment. You have, I've seen people argue that the old Gurukul system was fantastic and golden age and all this sort of thing. And some people say, oh, come on, it wasn't like that. But the point is that you look at that and you take the best things for it. So, what is it about the Gurukul system and the NEP that the Gurukul system can actually say to the NEP, can speak to the NEP? What can we take from that idea and say, well, this was ours. That we used to do these things. There are examples. There's a cultural reference there to this sort of system. The opportunities are, I think, to break the top-down bureaucracy that you find in many schools. There's an opportunity for people to start treating teachers as though they belong to a profession rather than they are just workers in a factory. There's an opportunity for teachers to treat children as though they are learners rather than students taking an exam. So instead of training students to take an exam, you're developing learners holistically for life. And to be honest, I mean, that some people say, oh, that's very airy-fairy. What about their exams? Well, life is school for those children for a long part of their lives. Many years, life is school. So I'm not saying that they're not being good at school, being able to cope with school, but that school comes something different. School is a place you go to develop yourself as a learner. And if you develop yourself, if you look at the attributes of a learner, you'll find that these are actually the attributes of many things that we want, of good citizens. So the attributes of a learner is the same, it's very similar to the attributes of a citizen, are very close to the attributes of a well-meaning, principled entrepreneur. So, whether it's social entrepreneur or business entrepreneur. So these are core things. So I went around the world. I mean, I went to many countries, and I asked the question to people, what do you think? What attributes, what skills, dispositions, things like that, actually do people need? Young people really need to be successful and happy in life. And wherever I went, Japan, Mozambique, to Germany, Lebanon, all these places, they said the same things. And those things were these attributes of a learner. So to be able to communicate with each other, to be curious and inquire, to be able to be balanced, and to they're the IB learner profile attributes, but they're more than that. The things that I collected showed more than that. There's anti-fragility. So resilience, we talk about resilience a lot, but there's anti-fragility is the sort of beyond resilience, where you don't just stay the same after a shock, you actually grow from it, So I think that's what people mean by resilience, but we call it that. So there's huge opportunities for not only for kids to be taught or coached or nurtured in the right way, but also for teachers to grab back their profession and to be able to go to school, really wanting to go to school, really excited about learning with the children, not going in and teaching at the children, but learning with the children. And if we can get over that problem, we should be okay. So there's something for everybody in this. For principals, for example, for leaders, to be able to have a community of people who know what the vision is, who know their role in it, and are willing to help each other, not compete against each other, but to help each other to create a community in which holistic learning can take place. So and if you're a principal of such a school, it's wonderful because you walk around and you see wonderful things and you have little problems, but everybody comes together to solve those problems. And it's a lovely place to be. So it's good for everybody.
Great, such a nice explanation, and I was, so glad to see that if you go to places, still, the people recognize that what is something that is required to survive and thrive in this challenging and changing world, and those are skills. And you're working a lot for approaches to learning, and it is very important that the learner know how to learn instead of what to learn, and the learner should be more interested into why they are learning that. So bridging that gap from the classroom to the real life experience, it is something which Indian educational policy is looking up to. What is something that I was really interested in, the factor which they now understood equity. Like earlier, it was like equal amount of, instruction, equal number of lessons for everyone. So the focus was more on giving equal thing to everyone. And as far as I know, equal is not always fair. This is very beautifully said, like equal is not always fair, and what is fair is not always equal. So the big idea of the NEP is equity, and that is something which made me think that we really need equitable educational system, which can address the individuality of a learner. Every learner who is walking into your classroom is unique. Then how come you can teach the same prescribed syllabus to each one? How can you teach each one in the same way? So it is like quite hilarious what we had been doing so far. So we were focusing on giving equal amount of everything to everyone. Rather we should focus on now equity. We should understand that learners are unique, the learning styles are unique, and they have unique experiences. So this was a great focus, which I was, really interested to dig deeper into, and there are ways to make it happen. I'm going to tell you a small incident that happened with me in 2016. There was a PYP exhibition, and the principal of a school visited that exhibition. And I was a homeroom teacher then, and he was very, interested to know about that. How come this is happening? Such young children are talking about things so confidently. They're talking about global issues, and he was like quite mesmerized. While leaving, he said that who conducted all this, and the director of the school introduced me that she's the one who made it happen, and I was not the one. It was actually a huge team, but I was an old teacher, so the credit landed into to my head. So that's how I met that principal, and he offered me that why don't you come down to my school and conduct a training, anything you can conduct. So he said that how do you address this kind of learning, what do you do? So I spoke about differentiated learning, and that time I was learning about differentiation like anything. I was into it completely. So I said, yes, this is something which really worked for me, because differentiation actually make things happen. When you do it, it will give greater result. This is not something like which is very comes as an additional thing for a teacher. It's not like that. Once you implement it in the correct way, and we got a training as well. So I went there and I conducted a training, and that was my first professional development. Up till now, I have conducted hundreds of professional development. That has become my habit now. But that time it was like, oh wow, I'm here. And around 60 to 70 teachers were there. Most were in the middle age, means elderly people, middle-aged people, and then I conducted the training. They really liked the training. in last minute, one teacher asked me that whatever you taught us, it's fabulous, and it make a lot of sense to us that we should address individuality, we should, differentiate the instructions or the learning environment, or giving them opportunities are important. But we have the ratio of 60 is to 1,
Mm.
sometimes 45 is to 1, 30 is to 1. In this environment, is it practically possible? So now the NEP talks about student teacher ratio. Until and unless we are not supporting them with the kind of ratio which is healthy for this kind of learning, we should not expect teachers. So this was the lesson that I learned. Although I conducted a kind of fabulous training for them, but that was not productive for them because they were
Yeah.
in such a system. So it really inspires me that now they can differentiate, because NEP, the ministry, is talking about a healthy student teacher ratio. And
Mm.
the concept of experiential learning, this very school is a top notch school in Bhopal where I belong to, and they were doing something known as exceed learning, and they were calling that it is quite similar to PYP. I said no, it is not similar, because still you guys are doing rote learning. You have certain themes, you give that to students mug up the facts, and then you apply certain strategies and call it inquiry based. Rather, inquiry is too much student led, not that much teacher guided. So I was always in conversation with this school, and my niece also, they study over there, so I have a relationship with this school, and I could see the challenges which these schools face. And luckily we belong to IB, and we do not face such challenges. We are still very much in a flexible setup where we can apply teachers agency. So my next question to you, Mr. Robert, is like, it seems like quite a daunting task for
Mm.
schools, leaders, teachers, students, parents, for all stakeholders, although it is bringing change for everyone. So what is your
Yeah.
advice? Where to start with? What are those starting points which should be there, which makes it an easy to
Mm.
applicable process?
Okay, so there is something which I call the golden process. Um, First of all, you sit, if you're a principal or a school owner, you sit with your people and you discuss aspects of the NEP. And I would start with that sentence that I said, anything that relates to teaching and learning in the NEP, because that's what we're about. It's no, there are things like how are we going to organize the year levels, and how are we going to do this and that and something else. Start with teaching and learning, first of all. Look at that sentence that says learning will be holistic. Think what that means. What does it mean to you? Find out what it means to other people. Contact me and find out what it means to me, or or you, and let's and then settle on something that you think, okay, we can do this. And then the golden process is this. The first stage is you say, what are we doing now? So everybody goes away and says, what am I doing now that fits with that, that contributes to that, that helps learners to become holistic learners? And then the next stage is to say, okay, we get together and what could we do to change things easily? What easy changes does this inspire in us to help to develop holistic learners more, okay, or better? And then you say, okay, that's great. Okay, what can we see is really difficult? What don't we know what to do? What's difficult, or what don't we know what to do? What's going to take us a long time? And then set a little team of interested people to go away and research how we're going to do that. Yeah. So that's sort of like, good teachers are already doing these things implicitly. Not all of the things, but they're doing many of the things implicitly. We need to make these things explicit. So if you are teaching in such a way that your children become curious, talk about that. Make that explicit. Tell your colleagues. Talk about that with your colleagues. Yeah. So I think the question was about, the it's daunting. You need to go step by step. You need to, first of all, really, ideally, you need to create an environment of trust. So the principal trusts the middle management. The middle management trust the teachers. The teachers trust the kids to perform their roles, to do what they're supposed to do. And when they don't, you talk about it. You don't blame people. You just talk about the break of trust, right? So we need to get trust going. We need to get communication going. We need to get collaboration going, and not just go into groups and think about it, but what does collaboration really mean? For different types of problems, there's different types of approaches that teams need to apply. So you need to take your time. You need to go through these things. You need to be very kind with each other, because we've got new teachers. I hear of schools where they have teachers, young teachers, who are just in teaching because there was nothing else to do, or they're doing that before they get married, or they, and they're not really. So many great teachers I've met actually started like that and then got inspired. And then we've got older teachers, perhaps, who've been teaching in the traditional manner for a long, long time, and they're coming to the end of their career and they don't want to change. And that's okay, as long as you are pointing in the right direction. That's the direction of the shared vision, which would include something like, we want young people to develop into good holistic learners, which actually is what good parents do that too, right? This is a very natural process. And then you say to people, right, we want you to be good teachers. We want you to go out there and help the kids to develop. Now, you have to, maybe you're having to stick to a curriculum, maybe you're having to, have an exam at the end of the year or something like that. But what opportunities are there in what you do? Do you have to stand there and tell people everything, or could you ask a question and get their responses and get them to read something outside the classroom and then come and discuss it? So that's sort of flipped learning, for example. Could you put them in groups or get them to go into groups where they're going to solve issues and learn the stuff that they have to learn together, but work out how they're going to do it? So the actual lesson that's learned is, how do we learn together? Sometimes girls and boys don't like to be in the same group, or somebody sporty guy doesn't like to be in the group with the academic guy. Okay, let them learn to get over this, okay, and help them through it. So that's where the teacher comes into coaching and asking questions about working together. And then if you've done that in your class, you can then say to their other teacher, if you're a science teacher, you can say to their English teacher, I did this in this class. Look, they know how to work together now. They know how to learn together. You can use that in your class. And the English teacher goes, oh, that's great. I've taught them how to express themselves and communicate in a presentation. You can use that in your class. And so this is an integration of, not of subjects, but of learning, of developing the learner. So we integrate the development of learners first, before we worry about integrating the subjects, which is sometimes quite a difficult thing. We can do that later when we're confident. So teachers need to be made confident. They need to be trusted. The kids need to be confident. They need to be trusted. And the principals as well. And if you have a principal who perhaps, is not sure about what to do, then the experienced teachers, or the teachers who understand this, need to support that principle, so that there's no fighting against, there's no them and us. Okay, now I know that's very strange for some Indian people to hear a British person saying, we need to get rid of divide and conquer, okay, because we have a history of that. But that's what we need to get rid of, okay? So know them and us, and to have this sort of, build a community. Right,
Amazing. I really love the way you put everything in a nutshell, and the major focus is on building trust. I completely agree with you that if trust is there, and trust comes in different shape and sizes. For example, if there is trust in the classroom, the student feel and behave in such a way that there is someone who is there to guide me, to facilitate the learning, and it's okay to do mistakes, and we can learn from those mistakes. So that particular mindset which is there in the learners, that no, we need to be perfect, we shouldn't be doing any mistake. and teachers are observing, and if the teacher will see us doing something wrong, she will be, annoyed or something like that. So that particular learning environment, which is conducive in nature and which is helping learners to, embrace their differences, or probably what are the commonalities are there. So it will start from the principal developing that kind of trust in the team, where the principal is not the boss and he doesn't know the answer of every problem. So an open discussion sort of, that yes, this is something and this is a gigantic thing we are going to do, and we are going to bring a shift in the educational system. These are the areas. So I was, really interested into the design thinking. If they apply design thinking in actually, in this setup, they will, bring in real changes. So the
Yeah.
process of design thinking can be used for action planning. Like it is a great thing to implement. The kind of meta application of design thinking can happen over here.
Mm.
This is what, I was talking to one of the principal, and she said that where to start with. In IB we make action plans. So the first thing first, like they should have a very smart action plan, and that action plan should involve all the stakeholders, including the parents, teachers, and students should also have a say, because they are the one, who are, ultimately going to benefit from all those things which are going to happen. And it will not take place overnightly. It's not like the NEP came and the school will become an NEP enabled school. It is a very slow and gradual process, but yes, it should be started now. So, like I always say that the principal of the school should be the learner. So the leadership is there, but learnership should take place, and now the leader should think that the others in the room have more better ideas. So probably the collaboration is something which will act as a key. It can catalyze the entire process in a way, like which is much required. And something that I really liked in NEP is the implementation of experiential learning. So actually it should happen because learners learn by doing. Like if we are lecturing for 40 minutes, they might take, in bits and pieces of it, whatever attracted them, but that actual thing is actually a time waste. The teacher is wasting his or her time because they
Yeah.
never take prior knowledge. If they take prior knowledge also, that is just for the namesake. So making them learn is something which is required, and experiential learning is a good to start process, and it is an umbrella thing. So it is not only learning by doing. There are exploration. We need learning environment which support that kind of learning. We need that student teacher ratio which I just spoke about. We need those peer to peer connection, and we need a complete revamping of the classroom environment, of the school's policy. Like it is written in the NEP that assessment, they are looking into a 360-degree change. But what is that 360 change? Do they know about it? When we are still struggling, talking, battling about, that board exam has stopped, and the results are not something which is what should I say? The results are biased or done internally and all those things. So still we have that mindset, and it will take some time to understand that measuring is important. But what is the role of measuring? We are measuring to improve ourselves as teachers, and to know where the learners are in their learning journey, and to bring them there towards a learning outcome that has been identified. So there is a lot more to say and talk about NEP. But yeah, because you're here and you're doing a lot in this field, so I really want some advices for the leaders, for the teachers of the schools, those who are about to implement NEP. What are your, major advices? What would you like to tell them that they should do that to implement NEP in an easy and effective manner?
So I agree with you. There are those things in the NEP that say we're going to do these things, we're going to do that, but it didn't look very good when just after the NEP was launched. The next budget, I think it was the next budget, national budget. Actually, the education budget went down, which didn't really signal very good support for the NEP. I'm sure it will pick up, and that's probably not a problem. But let's not wait for it. Or you might find that, what if they change their minds? What if they say no? We're going to run back to the same system. I think there was a system, an assessment system, continuous assessment, was introduced in some parts of India, and then it sort of failed as an implementation, and they pulled it back and went back to. So whatever they have, well, let's future-proof ourselves. And how do you future-proof yourself? The principal needs. The aim of a principal is to make themselves, in some way, to make themselves redundant. And the aim of the teacher is, of course, to make themselves redundant, because at the end, your kids are going to leave school and go away into the world. So they're going to be without you. So you need to prepare them before they go. And getting a piece of paper saying I passed physics is not going to prepare them for very many things. Okay, it's very good to have, of course, but it's only one of the good things that you can have. So the principals need to be able to empower. I sort of don't really like that word, but let's use it. Empower their teachers. So the teachers may need some support in order to gain that empowerment. So to be empowered, because it's been a very long time you've been in that system, that sort of traditional top-down sort of system. The principals need to support their staff to be empowered. The teachers need to support their children to be empowered. Like, you are the learners. This is your education. And teachers, this is your job. You need to be growing in it. So how do you go about empowering people? Well, you have to explain it to them. This is what we're going to do, to being explicit. And when something comes up, we say, okay, let's sit and look at it. Let's sit down and let's go through it together. Let's, if you look to me to do something, I'm going to look at you and say, well, what would you do in this situation? So you're giving opportunity to take responsibility for things. And being a kind person, you are, if it goes wrong or if they're not quite getting it, you have to be sort of tough to keep going, determined to say, well, okay, so what would happen if you did it that way? So let's say they choose a way that's not very good or not very imaginative. You say, well, okay, let's put down all of the ideas and let's see the consequences of the idea that you chose. If we did this, then this would happen. Then, oh, we'd end up in the same place, wouldn't we? What if we did this? Okay, so you have to sort of guide them a little bit, but the thing is that they're having buy-in to developing themselves, because in the end you want them to be able to develop themselves. So, a wonderful school. So I walked into a school in Spain once, and there was a Scottish principal, and he was very relaxed. And he was doing all sorts of other projects. And he said, well, how have you got the time to do these other things? Because my staff know what they're doing. And the teachers were very relaxed, and they were all doing all sorts of things too. And how have you got the time? Well, our kids know what they're doing. They know why they're here. And they know how to do it. They know how to look after each other. So in a class of kids, that class is going to, so I start off a year usually, it's saying to a class, right, we're all going to pass this subject, so don't worry about that. Okay, now let's go on and let's, so the idea is that we're all helping each other to make sure that we're going to get to the stage where we can pass the test or whatever it is, or get the grade or whatever that is, and we're going to learn as much as we can about this subject. But we're going to do it by developing you as a learner. So even if you drop this subject, you're going to carry on, take those skills and those dispositions that you've learned with you and use them everywhere else. So, yeah, that was a bit of a roundabout answer. My nutshells are quite big, aren't they?
In a nutshell, I could understand that you're focusing on approaches to learning, that they should know learning how to learn. They should be using those skills, because skills are something which will help them to transfer their learning to the real world. Recently, yeah.
Sorry, there's
Yeah.
something beyond. There's something beyond that. So we've seen teacher-centered education, where the teacher is. When I was at school, it was student-centered, where it was focusing on being a good student. And then we've got learning to learn and learner-centered education, which I think has horribly been reclaimed and slid into student. It's like you're still being a good learner for school, to be successful at school, but we want you to be successful at life. So I coined a different thing, which is learner development centered. It's a bit of a mouthful, but learner development centered means that you learn not only how to learn, but how to develop yourself as a learner. Okay? It's not difficult. It's easy, it's nice, and it's so applicable because you're not going to be in school for the rest of your life. And you need to be able to develop yourself as a learner through life. We're all learners through life. So this lifelong learning is a little bit of nonsense because you can't stop being a learner because you are a human. And humans, you're born a learner, you die a learner. Now, you might not realize it, but you are. But developing yourself as a learner is an explicit, conscious act that you need to do. Sorry. So a little bit extended then.
And I can completely relate with the name of your, institute, Developing Real Learners. So it's all about that, I think. So you are, trying a lot to develop real learners, and NEP is also working along on the same lines. And I'm also doing the same thing. So we have a common mission to develop real learners. Yes, and very beautifully said by you that it's okay if they are failing in that subject. It's okay. They can think that this is not something which is their cup of tea, but they have other skills that can make them successful in other areas. So failing in a subject is not the end of life. So this kind of mindset is important, yes. And I was talking to one of the parents, and we do not have the grading system here in primary. It is formatively assessed, and our the entire setup is data informed. We do not have the data driven process, and we are not giving them any sort of percentage, but we give detailed comprehensive reports, and in those reports we use descriptors. And one of the parents came to me that my child got EE in some of the areas, and in some of the areas she got ME. She misunderstood it as grades. So I told that those are the descriptors actually, but she did not understand. And then the language barrier, I speak English or Hindi, and she knows only Bangla. It was very difficult for us. And then I gave her a very nice example. It was nice for me, and it made a lot of sense for her as well, through one of the person who was acting as a translator between me and her. And I told her that, say I'm teaching your child how to swim through a textbook. She has by hearted it. And one fine day, I took her to the swimming pool and I asked her to swim. Will she be able to swim? So she said, no, certainly not. Because I said, because she has just mugged up how to swim. She knows everything about swimming, but that is just knowledge. Here we work on understanding, and those understanding can be observed, can be maintained in the form of anecdote. We document learning, we celebrate learning, and the report card is just a way to inform you where the learners are there in the learning journey. We celebrate process, not only product. So somehow I explained her, and she said that this example is really nice. It is making sense to me. So these little changes, conversation, communication, because these parents are also hardwired now. They only understand the language of marks. They do not understand, because the entire system is like that. Then I explained her, that how did we fell into the trap of marking. It all started with the bell curve, and which is used to be which was used to label people. So now what we are trying to do, we are trying to get rid of that labeling system. Rather, we are focusing on what each child is doing, how he or she is growing in his own learning process. I also gave her one more example, that say you are a gardener, and this is my favorite analogy. It is from John Hattie, one of my favorite educationalists, and he beautifully explained that if you're a gardener and you're growing a plant, what should be your major focus? You would be more worried about that I should make it grow, or you're worried about that, okay, how quickly I can measure it. So measuring comes at the end, and measuring has its own purpose. I'm not denying that summative assessment should be out of the school. It gives us some data and it helps us to analyze how we are as a system. But still, I find formative assessment very powerful.
Mm.
You just said that the continuous comprehensive evaluation that came
Oh
into
yeah.
scene that came when I was doing my PG, and
Mm.
that was a distorted version of it, right? We were
Mm.
still into the same system, we were doing the same thing, teachers were worried about marks. So that was introduced when I was doing my PG in 2010. So
Mm.
that was introduced then, and still, there are many things which are being introduced, but it is not being practiced in the way they should be. Right now, I'm sitting in a country, Bangladesh, and they last revised their educational policy in 2010. Up till now, there is no revision. They have the public exam. The kids write their first public exam in grade 5. There are tutoring clubs, or I should say the tutors are mushrooming like anything. So it's all about commercializing education. Similar is the case in India as well. I belong to a place, Bhopal, which is known for great coaching classes. People from small towns reach Bhopal just to get that coaching. So commercialization of education, and I hope that NEP will make school a place to learn, not a
Mm.
factory to produce similar kind of products. And coaching is okay if you really need that, but these days coaching has become a fashion. If the parent have pocket in the money in their pocket, they will definitely send their kids for coaching just for namesake, that in so and so coaching institute my child is learning. And the next thing which is becoming very popular in India is coding. Now coding has become something which is very popular, and I'm not against it, but there are other things which are more important: the emotional, social, and physical well-being, then the importance of mental well-being. That okay, that coding is important, but do you think that your child has time? Does he or she has interest? So all those things, keeping learner at the center of everything, of all your decision, is something which is required. And I really enjoyed the discussion which we had so far. And I give you a cue that what are the obstacles which are still there, but I would like to hear from you that what do you think, what are the major obstacles which you can observe or perceive from your experience. You have such a rich experience, you travel to countries. So what do you see, that what are the major obstacles in the implementation of NEP?
Yeah. So there are key things that help us to change a system. Um, we have some of these things in place already. So we now have the NEP saying that the system should be like this, that should be holistic and all that sort of thing. Okay, so that's good. So we can all point and say, look, that's where we're going. We have to understand what that means, of course. But I was talking to a person the other day, a young lady who had set up her own school, and she'd done it. It's sort of one of these things where let's get rid of all the usual type of schooling and let's create a completely new type of school with no boundaries and no subjects and no, all of this sort of thing. And somebody said to her, well, you won't find teachers who can do that. And she actually found that it was quite easy to find these teachers, because teachers really got turned on by this idea. And I found a very similar thing. When I went to different countries, I would find buried in the system, these teachers who were imprisoned in the education system, who said, I can see what you're saying is exactly what I dreamed of doing. I'd love to be able to teach like that, so, and they're not talking about no boundaries and no subjects. They're talking about just within their subject to be able to explore it and inspire children and get children to learn and grow as learners within the subject. So I'm pretty sure that there's enough of the teaching population who will be liberated by this. The kids will love it. Some of them who've been doing really well in the system. I know you've probably seen the same thing in international schools. You get a child who's come from a traditional system, who was doing really well in that traditional system, who's suddenly a little bit lost in this sort of thing. Well, no, we don't want you to know what you know. We want you to know what you understand and how you can apply it. And they're like, oh, anyway. So they get over it, though, quite quickly. So the kids will love it. Teachers will love it if it's not used as a weapon against them. So we just need the principals and the management teams. And I know that some of the principals are sort of there as administrators, and it's really the very enthusiastic school owners who are actually doing the things. They need to understand this as well, and they need to get involved. And they need to start to think, all right, let's try and create this community in which holistic learners may be developed. So what are the obstacles? The obstacles are the opposite to that. The obstacles are people who don't know what it means, who haven't read the NEP, who haven't considered it, who haven't sort of done a deep dive into it. The people who say, no, I am the boss and you just get on and do it. You know, implementing it correctly. There's a way of implementing things. So doing the research into it. It's not like some of the old style businesses, but it is like some of the new style businesses. So we can see things from business. There are schools that implement things very well. So where can we learn from them? So networking and finding out from other people, being open to say, I need a bit of help here. And then other people actually stepping up and helping, but not to increase their ego. So we need to get rid of a lot of egos, I think. There are quite a few in education, and we need to get rid of some of those. And be more of saying, look, just in India, or if you're in Bangladesh, you know, whatever country you're in, because I think this NEP thing is wonderful. It's an inspiration to other countries too. If you take out the main fundamental parts of it, and whatever countries, you say, right, we as a community, we as a people, we are going to change the education. What is my role as a parent to help this happen, to support the teachers to make that happen? What is my role as a young person, as a learner, to help my teacher to change? What is my role as a teacher to help my principal, support my principal to make this change? What am my role as a principal to help the teachers? What is my role as a board member or as a school owner? What is my role to empower the others? Okay, so we've got to come together as people, and we've got to start. So India has produced these wonderful philosophies and theories and ideas about how to be selfless, how to do things from the heart, how to be wonderful together. So you guys in India, you should know how to do this. You've got the cultural references, you've got the role models, you've got the heroes, you've got the people. Just apply it now. Get rid of the divisive things, the things that divide you. They're all natural to humans as well, but we need to, it's about time that we stopped. Looking at other people and envying them, wanting to be more superior than another person, worrying about your position. If you say, I don't know something, you're going to lose your standing. No, this has got to go. It's got to go. And it'll be hard. But that's probably one of the biggest obstacles. Don't worry about the Ministry of Education, if it changed or if it changed its mind. We'll do this. We as a community will do it. And that's what you see all over the world when you see non-profit organizations popping up and helping to support the education systems in different countries, in these really wonderfully, progressive countries. No, people are saying our education system isn't working. We need to help it. So that's what we need to do in India. And in Bangladesh probably too.
Great, very well said, Robert. We need to look these obstacles as opportunities, and we need to believe in power of we we as a community can bring those changes. Yes, there are obstacles, no doubt, and it is everywhere. Even if you set up a new international school, similar kind of challenges we face. Changing the mindset is important, developing that trust is important, and being open minded is also important. And we need to let it go. Like, if there is something which is not happening in the right order, that is a part of the process, but we eventually will reach what we are up to. And we are here to make our learners more agentic, helping them to understand why they are learning and how learning process work, instead of making them worried that how much marks I will get, what is next, developing that kind of the environment of fear. It is all I have seen myself as a student. I'll tell you a very funny incident. When I was in standard 10th, I cried like anything. It's not like that I got a bad result. There was a neighbor who got a very bad result, and I was in standard 9th. And I was very worried that what happened to this girl. She used to study a lot. If she can get, bad marks, this is going to be my future. So this was the mindset which we used to have, a kind of red race, that we are just there for achieving good marks. So that love of learning was missing. Very first time when I got into a complete internship during my PG, I understood what is real love of learning, because we were experimenting, exploring things, writing down our ideas. There was freedom, and we presented what we were doing for so many months. And I could realize that was a mini kind of inquiry process that we have experienced, and that gave real love of learning. And from that day I was into something that I should be into teaching, but I should be in an environment which is flexible. And my first visit into an IB school was like that, as if like some magnet is pulling me inside. The environment was that good. There were no textbooks. The library was rich. I could see the spark on the faces of the learners, and that was something that pulled me into teaching in an IB primary school, even though I was doing my majors in chemistry and I was aspiring to become an assistant professor in some college. And the roads were open. But that particular environment pulled me into the, yes, this is something which I wanted to do, and you won't believe that now it has been 12 years. I'm still with the same program, and I'm so happy. The kind of learning that I have gathered as a PYP educator and also as a PYP pedagogical leader, the actual ownership, the ability to make decisions, the ability to empower others. The way you said, there are times where I have no answers. When we started remote learning, we were at a big zero, and we collaboratively came together with those restricted resources. With that little knowledge, we started complete remote learning, and we have been learning remotely for past 2 years. And this process has taught me, my teachers, my team, school owners a lot. So I have seen a transformation, because here I'm sitting in a very remote area which is far away from the capital city. So running an IB school in this setup was an actual challenge, but we did it because we replaced me by we. I knew that I don't know it all. I knew my team knows it, and we actually harness the power of community. I have seen parents, quite interested into the system what we are, building up. The recent parent orientation program, the kind of questions they had, I could see the change. So with this kind of prior knowledge, I know in India also we can bring change. As you said, there are some great teachers who are doing great things in those confined boundaries. Now imagine when the system will change, these teachers will give those students wings to fly. And there are great lessons in the history of India. We are talking about NEP, copying, pasting certain things, but Mahatma Gandhi said it many years back that practical learning is something which is the need of the hour. Vocational courses should be the part of mainstream curriculum, because learners learn by doing. Imagine that schools are now fish distribution center. We are calling learners into rows and distributing them fishes. What if we teach them how to fish? So this is what we are going to do, and I'm damn sure that Indians have all those talents. Indian teachers are very talented because I have been training so many teachers in this pandemic. I myself wore the hat of learner, and I took up this, little mission that we need to empower each other. We need not to wait for people that what will happen, where what about the budget. Yes, there are so many obstacles, and that's how you are sitting here talking to me. I became the part of a T4 mission which has empowered millions of educators. I myself conducted a job like session, being network chair of this PYPC network, which had become a global event. So these are the little changes which we can bring. And I know, like, people like you, people like those who are attending these, they have a zeal to learn, and where there is a zeal to learn, no one can stop us. This is what I believe. And now my next and the last question to you is, what about learners? Like, we have discussed about all stakeholders, we discussed about what type of curriculum changes, we discussed about we should have trust, but how will it impact the learners? Like, all the focus is on learners, so how will it affect them, these young people, the
Yes,
implementation of NEP?
yes, and I think we talk about professional development, we talk about training for teachers. There needs to be a little bit of that sort of thing for learners as well. Obviously, with very young learners, yeah, at certain levels, there's certain things. Primary teachers should be fine with this because they are developing the character, if you like, not the character, but they're developing the person as well as teaching the things, the subjects, and that. So they're more used to it. For secondary people, they need to start to focus on bringing the learners into the process of developing this holistic approach. So it's not just my responsibility to teach you, it's your responsibility to learn. And if you give these young people responsibility in the right way, usually they love it and they take it. And so, knowing your kids. Now, we were talking about having the very big classrooms, huge numbers of children in some of the classrooms. There are ways to deal with that now. Any of you who went to the Indian Principals Network conference a few weeks ago would have seen a friend of mine who teaches ways. He's not the only person, but he teaches ways where children can be put together, and they go through a process where they form learning teams. And so suddenly the teacher isn't dealing necessarily with each person exactly individually, but with teams of people. And that sort of eases it a little bit. And if those teams are collaborative with each other, not competitive with each other, then things start to work. And it gives the teacher a little bit more time to stand back and to get to know the kids. And so knowing your children, you know how to intervene. In the old system, I'm sure in the Gurukul system, I mean, I'm more familiar with the sort of Sufi system, in this part of the world, where the teacher, if you like, we call them the sheikhs. So the sheikh would know their people really well and be able to ask a question or do something that took those people to the next level of enlightenment, if you like. And so, that's what you've got to do. You've got to know your kids well enough to be able to ask the right question. And you can do it even in those big groups. There are ways. And if you're interested, let me know and I can put you in contact with him. We'll be running courses about these sorts of things at some point soon. I just wanted to say a couple of things. We were talking about skills, and you were saying about how skills are important, but there's something deeper than skills that are equally essential, and that's your disposition. So you can be very skilled at inquiry, but you might not be curious. So you've got to be curious, and many of the little children are actually very curious about things, but they don't have the patience to actually inquire, to actually go into the process of inquiry. So you need the disposition of curiosity and the skill of inquiry together. And that's the same for many of those things. So there's the disposition. So you can be a very clever person, you know loads of things, but you you don't have the disposition to care about other people, and so you're really very clever and very good at things for nothing, because you can't be bothered to go and help people, or you're not interested. So caring and empathy and what I call heart-mindedness, which is getting to the heart of, being determined to get to the root of it, or heart of an issue, that's very important too. And the thing about failure, so we're talking about kids, they don't need to fail. We are failing them, okay, at the moment. So what we need to do is we need to bring on that it's not a failure. Your progress is not a failure. Your progress is progress. And you managing yourself and you being able to understand and know yourself as a learner, if you can do that, then there is some success. Because I've had many children leaving school, not children, teenagers leaving school, feeling that they were failures, going through awful years of depression. And then something happens, if they're lucky, something has happened, and that switched them on and made them realize that it was all an illusion, and actually they are quite bright people, and they are quite capable people, and going on to become wonderful people, and doing things that they really love and want. But it took years to get over school. So, you know, this idea of failure is a bit strange. You need to really look. You know, you need to have a session on that, actually.
Great. I think the change that has recently happened in IB, that attitudes are now subsumed with the learner profile. And this is making a lot of sense after this conversation, because you're saying that they may have certain kind of skills, but they may not have those dispositions, or vice versa. So a child need to be, curious also, and he or she should have those approaches to learn as well to succeed in this life. Being resilient is important. Being, having a growth mindset is important. Ability to self-regulate is important.
Mhm.
Understanding the emotion, addressing them, feeling that it's okay not to be okay. The failures are not
Yeah.
the full stops. So, everyone should understand these, what should I say, these milestones which come in the process. So failure is also one of the way to teach us a new lesson. So, not to stop there. So yeah, there are students who were aspiring for, becoming engineers, clearing
Yeah.
those exams, but there are many. I have seen, people appearing for PMT, the pre-medical test, and failing again and again, time and
Mm.
again they were failing, and they developed that same sense of, mindset that no, we are failures, we cannot get into the medical field, and that stops. Some of them, stopped there. In my age, when I was, doing my undergraduation, I have seen this, and that was very prevalent that time. Now parents are more aware. They know that there are other fields which are matching with the interest of my child is not a dumb. The only thing is the child is interested in something else. So yeah,
Mm.
that awareness is coming, and it's coming very slowly and gradually. I myself wanted to get into engineering, but my parents felt that no, this is something which is not for you. You should go into education because that's something more decent for you to do. I said okay. I was too interested into engineering. I got distinction in maths and physics and chemistry, and that stopped there. I eventually moved into teaching, and I picked up teaching just because of the love of learning that I experienced in that school. So I'm really thankful to IB that, yeah, IB made me what I am today. And yeah, thank you so much. And there are many connections which I could make today. And the only thing is, it's not about IB, it's not about NEP, it's about understanding that learners are important, valuing them as individuals, and helping them to grow. So that is something which we are trying to build in, and we are reimagining many things. And this pandemic pushed this reimagination to a greater height. And I hope whatever we have learned in this pandemic, we will, preserve it, and will continue to use things the way we are using now, especially technology. few days back, one of the teacher asked me that you know so many tools, and how do you learnt about all those and how many tools you apply? I said I know so many tools because I have a big team and I know the purpose where to use what. So we need to filter the purpose. It's not about using more tools, it's about using the right tool for the right thing. And technology is just a tool, and technology in the hands of great teachers become great. Otherwise, none of the ed tech can make you a great learner, but a teacher can. A teacher definitely can make you a great learner. So technology is just a tool. And again, now I'm going to talk about something which we both are part of. Mr. Robert is our academic advisor for the small project that I'm building up, and I'm very passionate about that. Why am I passionate about that? I have been doing inquiry teaching. I have been doing the kind of learning which should be there everywhere, but that is something which is only confined to my school or confined to people those who are elite class, because only people from that economic status or that society can send their kids to IB schools. But I want to make it available, accessible and affordable for everyone. So we have come up, I along with small team, they have come up with an online school that is a K5 school, and that is obviously going to walk into the same lines which we were talking about: inquiry, experiential learning, affordable learning, learning by doing, donor centric learning, and that too in a very affordable fee structure. So I'm just going to introduce you to that, and then we will felicitate Mr. Robert by a small token of love from all of us. So here we go. I'm just taking you to the presentation again. All right. So can you see it on the screen coming up, Mr. Robert?
Yes.
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 So great. Can you see a website coming up? Loading?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. So you just see the presentation?
Mm.
All
Learner's
right.
type. Yeah.
It's coming up. Yeah.
Can I just say thank you very much to all the people who've put the comments. It's very lovely, nice comments.
Interesting comments. Can
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
see the certificate on the
Yes.
screen?
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
that's nice.
So
Yeah.
I just want to say you thank you, a very big thank you for spending your time with us, giving us, helping us to gain more perspective about what is there in NEP, how it can be implemented effectively, and a lot more to learn from you. And yeah, that's great to be with a like-minded person like you. So I have. Can you see the website coming up? So sorry to ask you. Is
Mm.
it there?
No.
Can
So
you see it?
certificate is there.
Oh, let me go again and
Mm-hmm.
just check it. I'm just trying to show them the website. Now it will come up, I think. Can you see it now?
I can see something loading. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Yes, that's it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
this is what we are building up. So the name of our school is Learners Tribe International School. It is an online K5 school, and we are going to do great things. This is my small team. You can see Mr. Robert, Ms. Liz Cable, Gauri Das, and this is the team of teachers. All of them are IB trained teachers, and you can go head over to this website and explore what all is there. I'm just dropping a link in the chat box.
And you
Thank you
can
so
put
much,
my
Mr. Robert.
you can also put my email in there if you like, or the
Yes,
website,
and yeah,
because
just one more thing that I want to talk is like how can we help them? Like if there are schools who are struggling to implement
hmm,
this kind of process which we were talking about so far, like what
yeah.
can be done in that scenario? How can you help, or how can I
Yeah.
help? I'll answer
So
how I help.
so it's quite interesting. Just before this talk, I was talking to a French educator in Bristol University, so in Britain, and we were talking about this idea of creating a place you can go to where there are all these people who like me, you know, who want to do something to change education, and so they become a library basically of organizations looking to change. So people can look through them, see what suits their school, get ideas from them, things like that. There are courses coming up with the Indian Principals Network. I'm hoping that will happen very soon. You don't have to be Indian to do that as well. That's the other thing. So there are courses that are specifically for the NEP, but there are courses that are for how to do a similar thing if you are in another country. So there's two ranges of that. And I'd keep an eye on that, and you can keep an eye on if you contact me through LinkedIn. I have a group. You can join the group, and there's a newsletter every week, and that will tell you what is going on. It's a bit of an ugly newsletter. I'm not very good at making newsletters, but at least it tells you the information. So if there may be opportunities for you, and in the group also there are sometimes opportunities like webinars like this that you can find out, and you can also get into a conversation. And what I have found, you educators out there, is we offer this and then people are too shy to come and join. All right, so don't be shy. I had some wonderful connections with beginning teachers, for example, in very remote places, and they're the only ones there who's interested in changing, and we communicate. So personally, I communicate with them sometimes, and and it's good. So don't be shy. There we go.
All right, I have dropped Mr. Roberts' email, as he said that don't be shy, and you can communicate with him through this email. He is there on LinkedIn as well. I have also dropped the link of the form which you will fill, and you will get the certificate for attending today's session. They love certificates, so I give them certificates for attending the session.
Great.
So
That's
you can count on your PDRs through this certificate. So please fill this form. And I have also dropped the link of the website or school's website. You can go there and explore. It's gonna be a great learning atmosphere, because I'm trying to curb the factory-based model, and I'm trying to make quality education available to all. The fee structure is very, very nominal, and the best part is the teachers are internationally trained. No matter how big is the school, no matter how much technology are you using, but if you don't have good teachers, there's nothing which can change, right? So I was very choosy about picking up the teachers. So the teachers are fabulous. We have our YouTube channels. Please head over to the website. And if you have any questions, queries, you can write to Mr. Robert. He is a very amiable, friendly person. He will reply to you whatever you are planning, and if you're stuck somewhere. So thank you so much, Robert, for your patience, for your energy, for your enthusiasm, and for your knowledge. We thoroughly enjoyed it, and I could see, amazing comments, and people were very happy with the overall thing.
Yes.
So many congratulations, and accept that small certificate from all of us, and I'm going to mail you that certificate soon. And much more to do with you, more collaboration. Thank you so much.
Wonderful.
Happy evening from Bangladesh. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. And it's all up to you guys to go out and do this now, okay? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Lovely audience, you were great, and I was enjoying reading your messages. Thank you. A big thank you to everyone. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep communicating like this. We are there to help you, and we are together in this. Thank you so much.